या देवी स्तूयते नित्यं विबुधैर्वेदपारगैः सा मे वसतु जिह्वाग्रे ब्रह्मरूपा सरस्वती। नमामि नारायणपादपङ्कजं करोमि नारायणपूजनं सदा वदामि नारायणनामनिर्मलं स्मरामि नारायणतत्त्वमव्ययम्। अपार करुणामूर्तिं ज्ञानदं शान्तिरूपिणं श्रीचन्द्रशेखरगुरुं पूज्यं नमामि मुदान्वहम्। ध्यानमूलं गुरोर्मूर्तिः पूजामूलं गुरोः पदं मन्त्रमूलं गुरोर्वाक्यं मोक्षमूलं गुरोः कृपा. Invoking the grace of Goddess Saraswati, Guru Ayappan, Mahaperiva and Guru Parampara, we are now entering into Dasakam 18, Canto 1. This Dasakam 18 is titled as Prithu Chakravarti Charita Varnanam. That means the story of Prithu Chakra. The individual lines have got 13 syllables and the meter is called the Praharshini. We will now chant Canto 1. Jatasya Druvakula eva Tungakirtehe Angasya Vyajaniisutasya Venanama Yaddosha Vyatitamatisya Rajavaryaha Tatpade Nihitamana Vanam Gato Bhut. Jatasya Druvakula eva Tungakirtehe Angasya Vyajaniisutasya Venanama Yaddosha Vyatita Matisya Rajavarya Tvatpade Nihitamana Vanam Gato Bhut. Anvaya Druvakule Eva Jatasya Tungakirte Angasya Venanama Saha Sutaha Vyajani Yaddosha Vyatita Matihi Saha Rajavaryaha Tvatpade Nihitamanaha Vanam Gataha Abhut. Meaning now, Druvakule Eva Jatasya, who was born in the line of Dhruva itself. Tungakirtehe Angasya, to Anga of great fame. Vena Nama Saha Sutaha, the son named Vena. Vyajani was born. Yaddosha Vyatita Matihi. The word can be split up. The Vyutpati will be Yasya Doshena Vyatita Matihi Yasya Saha. Saddened by whose evil deeds Saha Rajavaryaha, that great king, Tvatpade, on thy feet, Nihitamanaha, with his mind fixed, Vanam Gataha Abhut, left for the forest. To Anga of great fame, who was born in Dhruva's line itself, a son by name Vena was born. Saddened by the evil deeds of Vena, the great king fixed his mind on thy lotus feet and left for the forest. Incidentally, this Dasaka are condensed in Bhagavatam 4, chapter 4, chapters 13 to 23. They are condensed in this Dasaka. Repeating again, Bhagavatam 4th Skandam, chapters 13 to 23. Now in this verse, the Anka, who was destroyed by his son's deeds, retired to forest. That is what is mentioned here. Anga was of a great fame, the king of a great fame. He retired to forest for the pursuit of tapas and leading a life of contemplation. The mention is made here of Dhruva's line itself. Dhruva's lineage means the reference to Uttanapada ancestry. Uttanapada was the son of Manu, and Manu born of Brahma. Brahma's Anga is, Brahma divided his body into two as Manu and his wife. So Manu, Dhruvapada, Uttanapada and Dhruva, that is the lineage talked about. The Raja Anga went to forest for leading a contemplative life is talked about here. The lineage of Dhruva also is talked about. Anga went to forest only for pursuing tapas because he was distressed by the evil deeds of his son. It created a vairagya in his mind and therefore he retired to the forest. Now, in this connection, it is mentioned here that Anga is the seventh descendant of Dhruva. Details are given in the Bhagavata, which I thought I will share with you. The son of Dhruva is called Vatsara. The son of Vatsara is Pushparna. Son of Pushparna is Vyushta. Son of Vyushta is Tejas. The son of Tejas is Chakshushman. And the son of Chakshushman is Unmukha. And Unmukha sixth son is Anga. Unmukha's sixth son is Anga, and his mother is Pushkaridi. So Anga is the seventh descendant of Dhruva. It's a very great lineage where all of them led a life of Vanaprastha. They had a contemplative life all throughout. And Anga was the most exalted among the 6 sons of Unmukha. He went to the forest, abandoning the kingdom for the benefit of his praja subjects and for the benefit of the kingdom itself, and also prayed indirectly that his son be redeemed from his evil deeds. This intention, he went to the forest. That's how the words talked about here is. There is a statement like Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashtopi Jayate, that in the family of pure and sincere and contemplative minded great men also, Yoga Brashta, the sons can be born who are totally against the Satkarma, who are on the non-dharmic path. So it is possible that a dharmic father can get also a non-dharmic son. That is what is talked about here. The prakriya of creation is such that sarga is the pravritti marga and visarga is the nivritti marga. All along, when all these rajas starting from here, even we saw in the previous thing also, Dhruva also took to it, then we saw earlier Kardama, all of them, they have ultimately led a contemplative life, which is talked about is all throughout this Bhagavata. So the nivritti is stressed here, the visarga aspect is stressed here, and indirectly a message also is given that moksha can be gained through tapas as well as through the enmity of the relations. Because enmity of the relations also causes vairagya in the mind of the person and makes him proceed towards the higher path. The importance of vanaprastha is stressed here. Attachment to world is bondage or samsara. Detachment from world is vairagya. And attachment to God or the absolute reality is mumukshutva. One who conforms to the yamas and niyamas, which I already covered earlier, only is qualified for vanaprastha. Vanaprastha under the varnashrama dharma is coming third in the ashrama dharma. Grihastha, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyasa. These are the 4 the Vishesha Dharma, Ashrama Dharma is talked about here. When a person, after gaining maturity, seeks truth and truth alone and wants to lead a life of seclusion, such a person is qualified as a vanaprastha. A person who is a vanaprastha, who leads a vanaprastha life, it's not necessary that the word used is, in the seva samsari is called a grihastha because grihe tishtati. He is in the griha. Whereas in the case of vanaprastha, vane prasthanam karodi, one who moves towards the forest. The forest is considered to be a place which is of respect because there one can lead a life of quietude, free from all sorts of worldly distraction. The word is called also is called, there is what is called Tapovanam also, the name is there. It is a tapas, a place for tapas. That is the implication here. Sukha, or the happiness in life, is generally classified into three categories: Adhama, Madhyama and Uttama. Adhama is the lowest category, where one leads a life of Arthakama, only sensual pleasures and comforts. Adharma Anushtana, not even conforming to the Dharma, not even accepting God as a factor. Such a person, such an purely derived, enjoying the world, even involving in adharmic activities and getting happiness, is called Adharma Sukha. Adhama Sukha. And Madhyama Sukha is leading a Sakama Dharma Anushtana. Having kamas, no doubt, enjoyments, but leading a dharmic life. In the earlier one it is Sakama Adharma Anushtana, here it is Sakama Dharma Anushtana. There we accept God as a factor, and invoking His grace, one leads a material life, enjoying the world and living only for the artha and karma, worldly comforts. The next is Nishkama Dharma Anushtana, which is called the Uttama Sukha, the happiness one gets. There one is not interested in the worldly pursuits, but one is interested in knowing the purpose of one's existence and knowing the absolute reality and gain moksha. And therefore all the karma initially one performs is Nishkama Dharma Anushtana, in the sense that it is only for mental purification. And this mental purification helps the seeker in gaining the freedom from samsara. So the Vanaprastha is a stage, a person who having done the Nishkama Dharma Anushtana has become a mumukshu and seeks the reality, and let's say leads a very contemplative life. So his extroverted physical activities are all reduced and mental disciplines are increased in the form of upasanas. This is discussed in very detail in the Upasana Canto also. Such a person leads a quieter life at home. It is not necessary that one has to go to Vana. Vana means only symbolically represented as a place where one can lead such a life. But even living at home, even you can live in the home, and such a person can lead in Vanaprasthasma, living in the home as a guest. Or he can go out to the forest. Such a person who leads such a life, he gains what is called the Chitta Ekagrata, which is the focusing or the converting faculty which enables the person to focus his mind on the reality and reality alone, and is free from distractions. He is not interested in any worldly pleasures. This is the commitment. And we see that in Bhagavata all along, starting from Kardama we saw earlier, and all the great saints, they all finally led such a contemplative life, seeking the truth. This is the Visarga Marga. The Laya is talked about here, where one gains union with the Lord. So, in this verse also, in the lineage of Dhruva, this Anga also retired to the forest. He retired to forest also for the benefit of the kingdom also, so that the kingdom also prospers. Generally, when we are befriended with unhappiness, with pains, we develop a vairagya in life. Such is the case in the case of Anga also. He had a son called Vena who was indulging in all evil actions, and therefore he got distressed with his son's activities and decided that he will retire from the kingdom and proceed toward the forest. We'll continue verse number 2 in the next session. Bhave bhave yata bhaktihi padayostava jayade tata kurushva devesha natastvam no yoga prapo nama sangeetanam yasya sarva pava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana Akila Guru Bhagavan Namaste Hariyo. Ya Devi Stujade Nityam Vibhudairveda Paragaihi Same Vasatu Jihvagre Brahma Rupa Saraswati. Namami Narayana Pada Pankajam Karomi Narayana Pujanam Sada Vadami Narayana Namadharmalam Smarami Narayana Tattvabhyam. Apara Karunamurtim Apara Karunamurtim Jnanadam Shantarubinam Sri Chandrasekharadhara Gurum Pujyam Namami Bhutanbham Dhyanamoolam Gurur Murtihi Puja Moolam Guru Padam Mantra Moolam Gurur Vakyam Moksha Moolam Guru Kripa. Invoking the grace of Goddess Sarvasati, Gurayarappan, Mahapariva and Guru Parambara, we are now on Dasakam 18, entering into Canto number 2. Papo Pichititala Palanayakste Benaha Pauradhyairupanita Katora Viryaha Sarvebhyo Nijabalameva Samprasamsanne Bhuchakre Taba Yajananyayam Yarautsid Papopi Kshititala Palanaya Vena Pauradhyairupanita Katora Viryaha Sarvebhyo Nija Balameva Samprasamsanne Bhuchakre Taba Yajananyayam Yarautsid. Anvaya Venaha Papaha Api Katora Viryaha Kshititala Palanaya Pauradhyaihi Upanihitaha Ayam Sarvebhyaha Nijabalam Eva Samprasamsanne Bhuchakre Tava Yajanani Nyarautsit. Venaha Papaha Api. Though Vena was evil-minded, Kathora Viryaha, being of very great prowess or strength, Kshititala Palanaya, for the governance of the country, Pauradhyaihi, by the leading citizens, Upanihitaha, he was made the king. Ayam, he, Sarvebhyaha, to all, Nijabalam eva, his strength alone, Samprasamsan, boasting about, Bhuchakre, all over the earth, Tava Yajanani, sacrifices to thee, Nyarautsid, prohibited or banned. Though Vena was evil-minded, the leading citizens, ministers, etc., crowned him as the king for the governance of the country. Since he possessed great prowess or valor, but he boasted about his strength alone to everyone and prohibited all yajnas to thee all over the world. Continuing from verse number 1, the Vena who was born of Anga committed all sorts of sins and was evil-minded. But still he was crowned as the king because Anga departed for the forest, so the country was without the king, and to avoid anarchy, the ministers and others elected him as the king of the country. Here there is a mention of his having been appointed by Pauradhyaihi. Pauradhyaihi means Pauradhyaihi means ministers also the subjects also Brahmins also. So all of them, the citizens, Purohitas, ministers, or senior or respected old persons, all of them together decided to elect him as the king of the country. When a person is papi or evil-minded and also possesses great valor or power or prowess, he will not hesitate to do wrong acts. That is what is being depicted here. His primary motive would be to exhibit his valor or virya, and in the process he also stopped all yajnas or oblations to Lord himself and also devas. When the king is evil-minded, the subjects or citizens of the country also undergo sufferings. He considered himself as superior than Ishvara, and hence banned all yajnas or oblations to Ishvara and the Devas. He considered himself as powerful and assumed that the world is sustained by his prowess and strength only, and hence there is no other yajna purusha other than himself, was his strong belief. In the process, he ordained that yajnas are not to be performed for the invisible powers and can be performed only for his benefit, and thus brought all yajnas to a standstill. Yajnas are meant for the prosperity of the world, loka sangrahaha. Among the Panchamahayajnas, Brahma Yajna or Rishi Yajna, Deva Yajna, Manusha Yajna, Pitru Yajna and Bhuta Yajna, only Rishi Yajna is considered as Jnana Yajna. All others are Dravya Yajna, which involved puja, homa, tarpana, annadhanam, etc. So when this yajna is obstructed, it creates serious disturbances in the world, and tapas and dhanam get totally obstructed. As a result, the world becomes totally extroverted, and the subjects or people themselves start hating or cursing the king. This is what exactly happened in Bela's kingdom. In fact, the subjects regretted for having appointed him or anointed him as the king of the country. We now move on to the verse number 3. Samprapte hita katanaya tabasaughe mattonyo bhuvanapatirna kaschaneti tvadninda vachanaparo munishwaraistaihi shapagnau shalabada shamanayivenaha. Samprapte hita kathanaya tabasaughe mattonyo bhuvanapatirna kaschaneti tvanninda vachanaparo munishwaraistaihi shapagnau shalabada shamanayivenaha. Tapasaughe hita kathanaya samprapte mattaha anyaha kaschana bhuvanapatihina itim tad ninda vachanaparaha venaha taihi munishwaraihi shapagnau shalabhadasam anayi. Tapasaughe, when a group of sages, Tapasaughe means the one who had the tapas, that's why the sages are called Tapasaughe, hita kathanaya, to advise him on what is good, samprapte, went to him, mattaha anyaha, other than me, kaschana bhuvanapatihi na, there is no Lord for the earth, iti, saying, thus, tvan ninda vachanaparaha, uttering words of contempt about thee, venaha, vena, taihi munishwaraihi, by those great sages, shapagnau, in the fire of their curse, shalabadasham anayi, anayi means destroyed, was destroyed like a moth or a firefly. When a group of sages went to advise him on what is good, he told them, there is no Lord for this earth other than me. When he despised thee thus, Vena was destroyed by those great sages by a curse, just as a moth is consumed by fire. Here, the importance of how sages tried to redeem him was brought about here also. The sages approached him to make him divert his mind towards spiritual path. He considered himself as Jagadishwara, Lord of himself. He told them, there is no Lord other than me. As a result, he was not prepared to listen to the advice of sages or even ponder over their wise dictums. Sages or rishis came to give him the knowledge or jnana yajna, which would be for his benefit and give him a right direction in life. But due to ahankara or ego or delusion, born of prowess or valor, he lost his viveka or discriminative faculty totally. This downfall culminated in the form of curse by rishis. He started to the extent not only that he did not listen to the advice of the sages, but also even started hating the Lord, despised the Lord. So the anugraha of the Lord also was not there. The curse of the sage also followed thereafter, and when the sages got infuriated by his arrogance and evil deeds, they cursed him. This curse was that he was just consumed by the fire. This curse in the form of fire of the sages, he cursed, God brought about his destruction. He attained the state of a moth or a firefly in the fire of curse. Thus he got a befitting punishment, and ahankara also got destroyed in the process. Here, what is stressed about is that when a person commits sins and becomes feeble-minded, his ahankara gets bloated and his mind gets so totally deluded that he is not able to understand what is right or wrong. And in the process, even the jnanis, when they try to advise him for what is good for him, he is not able to listen to them because he is clouded by the darkness of ignorance and bloated by ahankara, and therefore not in ready to position. This is what happens also when we become totally materialistic and not proceed in the spiritual path. We also get deluded by our material achievements and strength. In the process, we do not even sometimes think that it is necessary to think about the higher, and our ahankara causes our downfall. And this has been in a bhavartha, in a form, in implication form, it has been brought about here. We'll proceed to the verse number 4 in the next session. Bhave bhave yatha bhaktihi padayostava jayate tata kurushva devesha natastvam no yata prabho nama sankirtanam yasya sarva bhava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harimpram. Narayana Akhila Guru Bhagavan Namaste. Hari Om. Ya Devi Stuyate Nityam Vibhudair Veda Paragaihi Samay Vasati Jikhvagare Brahma Rupa Saraswati. Namami Narayana Padapankajam Karomi Narayana Pujanam Sada Vadami Narayana Namanirmalam Smarami Narayana Tattvamabhyam. Apara Karnamurtim Jnanadam Shantarupinam Sri Chandrasekharendra Gurum Pujam Namami Bhutanbhagam. Dhyanamoolam Guror Murtihi Pujamoolam Gurupadam Mandramoolam Guror Vakyam Mokshamoolam Guru Kripa. Invoking the grace of Goddess Saraswati, Guru Vairappan, Mahaperiva and Guru Parampara, we are now continuing our discussion on Dasakam 18, entering into verse number 4. Tannashat khalajana bhirukher munindraihi tanmatra chiraparirakshite tadhange tyaktadhe परिमथिता दथोर्दंडाद धोर्दंडे परिमतिते त्वमाभिरासीः तन्नाशात् खलजनभिरुखैर्मुनीन्द्रैः तन्मात्रा चिरपरिरक्षिते तदङ्गे त्यक्ताघे परिमतिता दथोर्दंडात् धोर्दंडे परिमथिते त्वमाभिरासीः तन्नाशात् खलजनभिरुखैर्मुनीन्द्रैः Tanmatra Chira Parirakshite Tadange Parimatitad Urdandad Tyaktage Ata Dordande Parimatite Tvam Abhirasihi. Tannashad, because of his death, Kalajana Bhirukaihi Munindraihi, by the great sages who feared wicked people, Tanmatra, by his mother, Chira Parirakshite, preserved for a long time, Tadange, from his body, Parimatitad Urudandad Tyaktage. The Utpatti could be seen as Tyaktam Agham Kalmasham Yena Tasmin. When all the sins had been churned out from the thigh, Uru means thigh, Parimatita means churned. Atha, then, Dordande, the hand, Parimatite, being churned, Tvam Abhirasihi, thou did manifest thyself. The great sages who feared that after the death of the king Bena, wicked elements would rear their heads, took his body, which had been preserved for a long time by his mother, and first churned the thigh. Then a very dark human being came out, who was nothing but Vena's sins. After the sins were thus removed, his hand was churned, and from it thou did appear in the form of Prithu. When the first churning was completed, the Murta Swarupa of the sins came out, and it is called as Nishada. The dark person which is talked about is called the Nishada, and those belonging to his clan are called Naishadaha. When his hand or arms were churned, then Bhagavan, along with Lakshmi, called Archi. Archi is the Amsha avatar of Lakshmi, manifested before them, and thereafter from his hand Prithu Chakravarti was born. Prithu is Kshatriya, the king. The main limb of Kshatriya, or the arm of limb component of Kshatriya, is his hand. Hence, Prithu was born from the hand. Kshatriya king, who is very eminent, as is told about. In Purusha Sukta there is a mention that Brahmano Otsya Mukamasid Bahura Janyakradaha Uru Tadascha Yadvaishyaha Padbhyagum Shudro Ajayata. In this verse what is mentioned is that Mukha represents is the aspect of Brahmana. Hand is for the Kshatriya, thigh for the Vaishya, and Pada or foot for the Shudra. Face also, or the mouth, stands for the knowledge. Hand is for protecting the weak or disabled from the enemies. For doing family and business, Krishi and Vanija, also physical efforts are required, which is supported by the thighs. And Susrusha or serving aspect is performed by the Pada or the legs. These are all classifications or varnas based on Guna Karma Vibhagaha, as said by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. The attributes and functionalities determine the varna. In every person, all the four varnas are present as represented by the various components of the body. Vidyasthana, the mouth, represents the teachings. Rajya Raksha, protection of the kingdom through the hand. Krishi and Vanija represents the business aspects, the thigh, and serving the patients by treating and curing them of diseases are also representing of the food. They are all the imperatives or essentials of every nation. Hence the requirement for all the four varnas. Here Prithu being a Chakravarti, Kshatriya, so from his hand it was mentioned that what was churned out, and they did appear in the form of Prithu. Prithu himself is an avatar of Vishnu. One symbolic aspect also should be seen here, that God lives or dwells in all, whether good or bad, saintly or wicked. But in the case of wicked person, the God aspect, the God principle is not seen because it is as though covered by the evil. So when the wickedness of a wicked person is removed, God becomes manifest. This is brought out here by this figure of churning. So it was first churned, then the sin came out, and thereafter from the hands came the Prithu Chakravarti. That's what is described in verse number 4. Now we'll move on to the verse number 5. Vikhyatah Prituriti tapasopadishtaihi sutadhyai parinuta bhavi bhuri viryaha venartya kabalita sampatam daritrim akrantam nijadhanusha samamakarshihi. Vikhyatah Prituriti tapasopadishtaihi sutadhyai parinuta bhavi bhuri viryaha venartya kabalita sampadam dharitrim akrantam nija dhanusha samama karshihi. Prituhu iti vikhyataha tvam tapasobadishtaihi sutadhyaihi parinuta bhavi bhuri viryaha venartya kapalida sampadam dharitrim akrantam nijadhanusha samam akarshihi. This is the Anvaya, literal meaning. Prituhu iti vikhyataha. Thou were famous as Prithu. Tapasopadishtaihi sutadhyaihi. Sutadhya means Suta Adi, by the Sutas and others who were advised by Tapasopadishtaihi. Tapasaha rishis, Upadishtaihi advised. Parinuta bhavi bhuri viryaha. Vyutpatti will be paritaha nutani bhavini bhurini viryani yasyasaha. All these qualities are coming there. Whose many brave deeds to come in the future were sung all around. Venartya, because of oppression by Vena, Kabalita Sampadam Daritri, the Mother Earth, who had withdrawn into herself all the wealth. Kabalita Sampadam, Sampadam means the wealth, Kabalita means withdrawn. Akrantam, and who was threatened by Prithu. Nija Dhanusha, with thy bow, Samam Akarshihi, made even. Thou who were famous and Prithu, and whose future deeds of valor were sung about by Sutas and others under the advice of sages, did threaten the earth, which had withdrawn all its wealth into itself during the reign of oppression of Vena, and did make it even with thy bow. Did make it even with thy bow. That's how the literal translation is. So it's mentioned here, during the reign of Vena, the wealth of the earth, which should be properly used for yajnas, was being misused for other purposes. The earth, therefore, out of fear, withdrew all its wealth deep into itself. So during the oppressive regime, agriculture, which is the mainstay of every nation, also was neglected. So Prithu re-established the yajnas and the cultivation of the earth. This is expressed symbolically here. The Prithu is the avatar of the Bhagavan. This was revealed to the Suta and Magadas by the Marichi and other rishis who taught these Sutas, and therefore they sung the glory of the Prithu. The glory of the Prithu was, we saw here also, that he brought back the wealth from the earth and revived agriculture and the cultivation of the earth. So this was brought about here. Bhumi Devi, as an act of protecting the wealth, withdrew all its wealth. It's not the intention for the Bhumi Devi to take all the wealth back to itself. Whenever evil persons come, the strategy would be always a defensive strategy. If we cannot attack, we defend ourselves. Therefore, Bhumi Devi, to protect the nation, took back all its wealth in herself. When Prithu Chakravarti threatened the earth for bringing back the wealth, Bhumi Devi assumed the form of cow, which is mentioned in Bhagavata, and all the wealth required by the kingdom was milked from the body of the cow. During the reign of Vena, it should be also understood, people were suffering from starvation and helplessness, as he was even obstructing the subjects from doing farming, which is the mainstay of our prosperity for the nation. And all the wealth required for Bhumi were also deprived of, because he did not allow them to perform yajna. These wealth were diverted for evil purposes. So when Prithu threatened the Bhumi Devi that to bring back the health, to destroy otherwise he would be destroying the earth out of fear appeared in the form of cow and bestowed all the wealth in the kingdom. Prithu with his bow evened, means re-established the earth for cultivation. The Dhanush used by Prithu is called Dhanush Koti, it is called. With this bow, Prithu, thus the glory of the Lord Prithu came out here. Incidentally, it may be noted, the term Prithvi has come from this word Prithu Chakravarti only. Prithu also, the word symbolically represents one who is powerful, personality is called. And for it's the Prithvi that supports all that is existing in the earth. Sentient, inert, powerful, everything, wealth, all these are supported by the earth. So Prithvi Mata supports, so the power of the Prithvi is represented in the Prithu, who is the king. And the glory of the King Prithu also is brought about in this verse number 5. We will move into verse number 6 in the next session. Bhave bhave yatha bhaktihi padayostava jayate tata kurushya devesha natastvam no yata prabhu nama sankirtanam yasya sarvabhava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana akila guru Bhagavan namaste. Hari Om. या देवी स्तूयते नित्यं विभुतैर्वेदपारगैः सा मे वसतु जिह्वाग्रे ब्रह्मरूपा सरस्वती. नमामि नारायणपादपङ्कजं करोमि नारायणपूजनं सदा वदामि नारायणनामनिर्मलं स्मरामि नारायणतत्त्वमव्ययम्. अपारकरुणामूर्तिं ज्ञानदं शान्तरूपिणं श्रीचन्द्रशेखरगुरुं पूज्यं नमामि मुदान्वहम्. ध्यानमूलं गुरोर्मूर्ति पूजामूलं गुरोः पदं mantramulam gurur vakyam mokshamulam guru kripa. Invoking the grace of Goddess Saraswati, Guru Ayyappan, Mahaperiyava and Guru Parampara, we are now entering into verse number 6 of Dasaka 18. Bhuyastam nijakula mukhyavatsa devadhyai samuchita charu bhajaneshu अन्नादीन्यभिलषितानि यानि तानि स्वच्छन्दं सुरभितनूम् अधूदुहस्त्वं. भूयस्तां निजकुलमुख्यवत्सयुक्तैः देवाद्यैः समुचितचारुभाजनेषु अन्नादीन्यभिलषितानि यानि तानि स्वच्छन्दं सुरभितनूम् अधूदुहस्त्वं. अन्वया भूयः त्वं निजकुलमुख्यवत्सयुक्तैः देवाद्यैः समुचितचारुभाजनेषु यानि अभिलषितानि तानि अन्नादीनि सुरभितनूं तां स्वच्छन्दम् अधूदुहः. Bhuyaha tvam, then thou, Nija Kula Mukhya Vatsa Yuktaihi, with the leader of each group as the calf, Devadhyaihi, by the gods and others, Samuchita Charu Bhajaneshu, in appropriate special vessels, Yani Abhilashitani, whatever was desired, Tani Annadini, food and other things, Surabhi Tanum Tam, the earth in the form of Kamadenu, swachantam as they liked, adu duhaha did cause to milk. Thou did make the gods and all others milk the earth, which was like Kamadhenu, with the leader of each group as the calf, and collect the milk in the form of food and other things in appropriate special vessels. Here we should understand the word starts with thou, you, O Lord. Means it is mentioned already earlier, Prithu is an avatar of Mahavishnu, Lord himself. And therefore, instead of Prithu means here thou means the Prithu himself, the Lord King himself is addressed as the avatar of the Lord. So it's mentioned here that Lord or Prithu made the gods. It says here Devadyahi means gods, Gandharvas, Rishis, Apsaras, all are covered in this word, meaning Adyahi says Deva and others, gods and others, made use of them and inspired all of them to collect the respective things from this earth. The word used is Surabhi. Surabhi has got two meanings. Surabhi adjective is called fragrant. The abstract aspect of Surabhi means that which is fragrant. The noun form is, the feminine form is, Surabhi is used for earth also, and Surabhi is also for the cow. Go also is called Surabhi. Here, in this context, the earth itself was like a Kamadhenu. So, the word Surabhi stands for both the earth also as the go. It's because it is giving all that is desired to those who wanted to extract from them. And these details are covered in this verse. So, when Prithu approached Bhumi Devi, or earth, for retrieving the wealth, the earth assumed the form of cow and ran away out of fright. Prithu followed her, and thereafter the earth surrendered to the king or to the Lord himself, who is Prithu is the Lord of Avatar himself. Unable to retrieve the wealth because the earth has lost all its power. It is hidden in her Garbha, but it was unable to retrieve them due to loss of Shakti, and therefore requested Prithu to get back the wealth from her using his Yoga Shakti we can say. Thereafter the king inspired the Devas, Daityas, Siddhas, Apsaras, etc. to milk from the earth, means to extract from the earth, which was like a Kamadhenu. All that has been hidden here. Kamadhenu or Surabhi, so divine cow, and earth also is divine. And that is why the comparison is made to Surabhi as the earth or Surabhi as the cow, Kamadhenu. Should be noted here. So all that is desired are things as desired by them. The Devas, etc. assumed the form of the calves, means the young cow, to extract the required things. In the beginning, Prithu himself inspired Manu as calf and milked all the aushadis, herbs, using the palm as vessel. This description of the vessels and what they extracted is contained in the Bhagavata 4th chapter 18. So it is being extracted from there. Rishis made Devarishi or Devaguru Brihaspati as calf and milked Vedas or Chandas using Indriya as the vessel. Devas inspired Indra as calf to extract Somarasa using the golden vessel. Asuras made Prahlada as calf using iron vessels and extracted wine. Gandharvas, Apsaras made Vishwakarma as calf and milked Sangeeta and beauty Saundarya using lotus as the vessel. Pitrus used Aryama as calf and extracted the sacrificial rice or annam, that is what we give to Pitru. So it is in green vessel. Siddha made Kapila as calf and extracted Ashtaiswarya Siddhi, the eightfold Siddhis powers, using Akasa or sky or space as the vessel. All these are very vividly described in the chapter 18 of 4th Skandam. It reminds us of Kumara Sambhava also, written by Kalidasa, in which it was mentioned that the mountains made Himavan as calf and milked diamonds and other ratnas, pearls, and Aushadhi herbs. These above descriptions symbolizes the fact that earth gave to one and all whatever desired by them, like Kamadhenu, and made them happy. Traditionally, any nation depends on cultivation or farming as a source of prosperity, and it's the primary responsibility of king to give all possible support for this purpose. So Prithu as king fulfilled this responsibility. That is what is mentioned here also in this man, by making use of the earth to give all possible wealth to the entire creations, to devas, etc. The word Annadini is used here. Anna Adi means food and other items, you have to understand. So all other items are covered here also. Means this word Annam comes from the root Dhatu called Ad Bhakshane, meaning all food items. That's why Annadini means, and not merely rice, it includes all food items also and other items. Adi also is covered. Symbolically, the individual vessels or items have respective connotations. For example, wine denotes the sensual pleasures born of ignorance, and iron vessel denotes the worldliness, bhautika, asuras, asuric. So asuras are basically tamasic. So to tamas saguna, they indulge in this kind of power, lower level of sensual pleasures in the form of wine, etc. Rishis, for example, they extracted Vedas or Chantas using Acharya Brihaspati for retaining in their minds. Lotus represents, for example, the beauty or the Saundarya aspect, which is called Vak Madhurya. So Saundarya, lotus, all that is beautiful. So the beauty of the leaves can be connected to Sangeeta, which is Vak Madhurya, and also all other beautiful things. In this manner, it is also implied that also all types of wealth or prosperity are available in abundance in this prapancha or world. One has to only make necessary efforts to gain them, and the earth, as a result of our efforts, become a divine mother like Kamadhenu, overflowing with milk, honey, and other items of prosperity, bestowing happiness to all beings in the creations. That is what is being implied here in this verse number 5. With this we'll move to verse number 6. Bhuyastam nijakula mukya vatsayuktaihi devadhyai samuchita charu bhajaneshu annadhin nyabhilashitani yanitani swachandam surabitanum. I'm reading verse number 6. Verse number 7 we are going. Atmanam yajati makais tvayitridhaman arabdhe shatatama vajimedhayaghe spardhaluhu shatamaka epjanicha veshaha hritvashvam tavatanayad parajito bhoot. Atmanam yajati makais tvayitridhaman arabdhe shatata mavaji medhayage spardhaluhu shatamaka etyanicha vesha hritvashvam tavatanayad parajito bhoot. The Anvaya of this: Tridhaman tvayi makaihi atmanam yajati shatata mabaji medhayage arabde spardhaluhu shatamakaha nichaveshaha etya ashvam hritva tava tanayat parajitaha abhoot. Meaning, Hey Tridhaman, O Lord of the three worlds, Tvayi, when thou, Makaihi, by sacrifices, Atmanam Yajati, when sacrificing to thyself, were sacrificing to the Atmanam Jajati, were sacrificing to thyself, Shatatam Avaji Medayage, when the 100th Ashwamedha Yaga, Arabde, was begun, Spardaluhu Shatamakaha, Indra, who was jealous, Nicha Veshaha Etya, coming in the guise of a low-born person, Ashwam Bhritva, stealing away the horse, Tava Tanayat, by thy son, Parajitaha Abhut, was defeated. The meaning of the verse: O Lord of the three worlds, when thou, performing sacrifices to thyself, did begin the 100th Ashwamedha Yaga, Indra became jealous and, coming in the guise of a low-born person, stole the horse. He was then defeated by thy son, who was therefore called Vichitashwan, that is, one who won the horse back. We'll go into the details of this verse, Bhavartha, and the implications in the next session. Bhave bhave yada bhaktihi padayostava jayate tata kurusha devesha natastam no yata prabhu nama sankirtanam yasya sarvabhava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana akila guru Bhagavan namaste. Ya devi stuyade nityam vibhudair veda paragaihi same vasati jihvagre brahmarupa saraswati namami Narayana padamangajam karomi Narayana pujanam sada vadami Narayana namadharmalam smarami Narayana tattvam apara karanamurti jnanadam shantarupinam Sri Chandrasekharendra gurum pujyam namami udanvaham dhyanamoolam guror murtihi pujamulam guror padam mantramulo guror vakyam dhyanamoola mokshamulo guru kripa. Invoking the grace of Goddess Saraswati, Mahapriyava, Guru Paramparava. We are now on Dasakam 18. We completed the verse number 7, the literal meaning. We will go into the deeper implications in this session. We will chant once again the verse number 7. Devendram muhuriti vajinam harantam Vaknautvam Murivara Mandale Juhusham. Verse number 7. Atmanam Yajadimakai Stayitridhaman Arabdhe Shatatama Vaji Medhayage Spardhaluhu Shatamaka Etya Nichavesho Hritvashvam Tavatanayat Parajito Bhut. So it was mentioned in this verse that addressed to the Lord, who is O Lord, you are the Lord of three worlds. When you are performing this sacrifice to yourself and you started the 100th Ashwamedha Yaga, Indra became jealous and, coming in the form of a low-born person, stole the horse. He was then defeated by your son. Here the Paramatma is addressed as Lord of the three worlds, Tridhaman. Paramatma wielding Maya, which is Trigunatmaka. Vishnu as Sattarunamurti, the aspect of maintenance, residing in Vaikuntha. Brahma as creation aspect, residing in Satyaloka. And Rudra or Shiva as Tamoguna aspect or Laya aspect, residing in Kailasam. Vaikuntha, Satyaloka and Kailasa also can be seen as the three loka. Creation, sustenance and destruction or Laya as the functional aspects of the Trimurtis. That we can say as the Lord of the three worlds. The three aspects of Prakriti, therefore, Lord as Paramatma Swarupa is ever present and everywhere present in three forms in all the three lokas. The three also represents the three gunas. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, we saw that, and also the three karmas, past, the Sanchita, Prarabdha and Agami. Three dimensions of time, past, present and future. Also we can say three avasthas, Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti. waking state, dream state and deep sleep state. And also we can talk about three shariras as Stula, gross, Sukshma, subtle, and Karana, causal body. And we can finally also see as the all present in the three lokas as Bhuloka, Swargaloka, and Pataloka. And that's how the Lord is addressed as, you are the Lord of three worlds. The world means not only the physical world, the experiences. Lokyate or Anubhuyate Anena iti Lokaha. So that's how we saw these three worlds can have interpretations in the above mentioned manner. The Prithu Chakravarti, who himself is the Lord, as Vajimeta or Ashwameta, completed 99 Ashwameta Yajnas and started the 100th Yajna. Indra, of course, got frightened about this when he started, because Indra is considered as known as the Shatamakaha. Shatamakaha or Shatakratu, both are used words, because he won that position by performing 100 Ashwameta Yaga. Shata means 100, Kratu or means Yajna. Here Makaha means also Yajna, Ashwameta Yajna. So he got that position by performing 100 Ashwameta Yagas. Now he found that he is having an opponent who is going to perform similar Yajna, and he thought that he is going to lose his position. Got frightened. And he therefore disguised himself and stole the horse. And the episode says that, however, the rishis, the Atri Maharishi, revealed him to Prithu's son, that it is Indra who has come in a disguised form, and the son defeated Indra and got the horse back. And therefore, the Prithu named his son as Vijitashwan, one who won the horse back. This is the story aspect. We could also have a symbolic interpretation to look at it in a different way. Ashwamedha is also can be called as Indriya Medha. In Kathopanishad, there is a reference about Sharira being considered as a chariot and Indriyas as horses. Indriyani Hayani Ahu. Indriyas is considered as the horses. The 5 horses represents the 5 Jnanendriyas. And of course, Karmendriya is a subset of the 5. Therefore, they are implied also in there. Therefore, the word Medha can be linked to Indriyas. Indra is called as the Indriyanam Devaha, the Lord of the Indriyas, or Indriyanam Ishaha. So, Indra has conquered, became the Indriyanam Isha because he performed this Ashwamedha Yajna also. Because the horse can be likened to the Indriyas. But it is very paradoxical that Indra although has performed 100 Ashwamedha Yajna and claimed sovereignty over all other kings, it is very paradoxical that he was, although called as the master of the Indriyas, he still suffered from both intellectual bondage and emotional bondage. Intellectual bondage comes in the form of Ahankara and Mamakara. Indra suffered from Ahankara and Mamakara. He considered himself as the Lord of Lords and that nobody can defeat him. This was his Ahankara. And the emotional slavery is all the 6-fold enemies in the form of Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya overwhelmed him. Indra enjoyed absolute, India had all sorts of desires, Kama, and also sensual pleasures in the form of Ambika, Menaka, etc., Tilotama and all. And Indra was angry when somebody competed with him, Krodha. Lobha, of course, he had greed. He wanted to have all the wealth. In fact, almost whatever he inherited was borrowed from Amrita Mardana in the form of Airavata, Parijata, etc. And even Lord, last time we saw in the Narayaneeyam, gave Urvashi as a gift to him. So the Lobha was there. Moha also was, delusion was there because he was unaware of his true self. He was suffering from ignorance of himself because he considered himself as the ultimate of everything. And Moha also led to Mata. Mata means arrogance, pride, and that nobody can defeat him. That arrogance leads to always a superiority complex, born of superiority complex, and he started challenging everyone. And therefore, always there was a tussle between him and the asuras. And Matsarya, the jealousy dominated his personality. Jealousy is born of inferiority complex. Jealousy comes from sense of insecurity. It should be understood that all these external achievements or material possessions are only ephemeral and not permanent. And there is always a chance, a fear of losing it. So this fear of losing causes what is called a sense of insecurity. And this insecurity, that fear that Indra always experienced as time to time, he was causing obstruction. We saw also in Narayanayana. Also Narayanayana helped in defeating Sahasrakavaja based on the request of Indra. He still forgot the fact that the Lord helped him, but still he wanted to obstruct their tapas. He thought that their tapas would be an impediment to his having the kingdom. And in the end, the Narayana gifted the Urvashi to him. So this was his kind of a delusion. This insecurity, this fear in his mind made him even forget the fact that he is ungrateful even to the Lord himself who helped him from various crisis situations. Narayana episode demonstrated this fact, and we could see here also that the Lord himself, Prithu himself, is the avatar of the Lord Vishnu, was performing this yaga. He thought that this yaga, when he completes 100 Ashwamedha yaga, it would be a competitor to him. And therefore, he wanted to obstruct performing the yaga. And therefore, this sense of insecurity and fear made him also jealous. The jealousy comes because he found that he is a competitor. This jealousy is a very negative instinct. And therefore, a negative instinct, jealousy, will make a person's intellect also perverted. And that is why here he found that Indra disguised himself as a low-born person, is mentioned here. Because always jealousy comes in a disguised fact. When a person is jealous, he never expresses himself openly, but he tries to attack the other person as surreptitiously, in a manner in which that you could gain victory over him. And therefore here also Indra came to steal the horse, disguising himself as a low-born person. However, he was fighting with Paramatma. He did not realize that aspect. Therefore here also he got defeated. His son won over him and restored the horse back to him. And Indra was humiliated. When a person wants to steal someone's possession, he has to hide himself to avoid being caught. And that is why this disguised form is considered. So both stealing and disguised form are considered to be great sins. And India suffered from this, and in the end, Indra was defeated, and he could not prevent the Lord from performing the 99th Ashwamedha yagas. And it is mentioned that Prithu then started commencing the 100 yagas. And at that time, Indra came here. That's how it was mentioned here. This verse gets concluded. It's what should be understood here is that all of us should understand that although we may have all the possessions, material possession, we should not become a slave of them. That is being talked about here. The Indriya Nam, the sense sources also can be seen in a different way. When you have possession of the sense organs under your control, the mind always functions in the world through sense organs and comes into contact with sense objects. When Indriya or the horses are stolen, the mind will be unable to gain the sense objects. So it will become non-functional. So Indra can be seen also as the mind which is unable to perform in the absence of horses which are in the form of a sense organs, and therefore gain or retain the external kingdom, the Swarga which he was having. And therefore Indra as a mind wanted to steal the horse, regain the Indriyas, and thereby he can have possession of the kingdom. It could be seen that also it can be seen interpreted in this manner, and this verse concludes in this manner. We will proceed to the verse number 8 in the next session. Bhave bhave yatha bhakti padayostava jayade tata kurushva devesha natastvam no ida prabho nama sankirtanam yasya sarva baba pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana Akila Guru Bhagavan Namaste. Hari You. या देवी स्तूयते नित्यं विबुधैर्वेदपारगैः सा मे वसति जिह्वाग्रे ब्रह्मरूपा सरस्वती. नमामि नारायणपादपङ्कजं करोमि नारायणपूजनं सदा वदामि नारायणनामनिर्मलं स्मरामि नारायणतत्त्वमव्ययम्. अपारकरुणासिन्धुं ज्ञानदं शान्तमूर्तिनं ज्ञानतं शान्तरूपिणं श्रीचन्द्रशेखरेन्द्रगुरुं नमामि मुदान्वहम्. ध्यानमूलं गुरोर्मूर्तिः पूजामूलं गुरोः पदं मंत्रमूலம் गुरोर्वाक्यम मोक्षमूலம் गुरोः कृपा. Invoking the grace of Goddess Saraswati, Guru Ayappan, Mahaperiyava and Guru Parampara, we are now continuing our discussion on Dasakam 18, entering into verse number 8. Devendram Muhurti Vajinam Harantam Vannautam Mudivara Juhushau रुन्धाने कमलभवे क्रतो समाप्तौ साक्षात्त्वं मतुरिपुम् ऐक्षता स्वयं स्वं. देवेन्द्रं मुहुरिति वाजिनं हरन्तं वह्नौ तं मुनिवरमण्डले जुहूषौ रुन्धाने कमलभवे क्रता समाप्तौ साक्षात्त्वं मतुरिपुमैक्षता स्वयं स्वं. अन्वया इति मुहुः वाजिनं हरन्तं तं मुनिवरमण्डले वह्नौ जुहूषौ कमलभवे रुन्धाने क्रतोः समाप्तौ त्वं स्वयं स्वं मतुरिपुं साक्षात् ऐक्षताः. Iti, in this manner, muhuhu vajinam harantam. Muhu means again and again. Vajinam, horse. Harantam, stealing. Who was stealing the horse again and again. Tam Indra, that is tam means Indra here. Munivara mandale. When the sages, Munivara means sages, Vannau Juhusho were about to offer as an oblation into the fire, Kamala Bhave means Brahma. Kamala Bhave Rundhane. Brahma preventing it. Kratoho Samaptau. At the end of the yajna. Tvam Swayam Swam Mathuripum Sakshat Ekshataha. Thou didst see before thee Mahavishnu. Madhurupu means slayer of the demon Madhu. He is called Mahavishnu. He is addressed as Madhurupu or Madhusudana. So thou didst see before thee Mahavishnu, who is thyself. So when the sages were about to offer as an oblation into the fire, Indra, who was repeatedly stealing the horse, they were prevented by Brahma. At the end of the yajna, thou didst see before thee the slayer of the demon Madhu, Mahavishnu, who is none other than thyself. So here we saw in the earlier verse that Indra was trying to obstruct the yajna by stealing the horse, and the horse was retrieved. But he continued his efforts. So Prithu, through the rishis, after completing the 9th yajna, when they completed the 100th yajna, Indra again was stealing the horse. Here is mentioned as stealing the horse. In some books it says he was trying to steal the sacrificial horse. Either way the interpretations are okay. So when he was trying to steal the horse, Ritiks who were performing the yajna, they are called Raja Rishis. They decided to offer Indra himself as oblation to the fire. The fire it's called as a Dakshinagni, because they wanted to prevent Indra from perpetrating this sinful act. As a side note, there are 3 types of yajnas generally are talked about in our Dharma Shastra also, in Vedas also. One is called Ahavaniya, that is for the one is called Dakshinagni. Second is called Ahavaniya, and third is called Garhapatya. Dakshinagni is for the Pitrus ancestors. Ahavaniya is the Agni used by Devas, and Garhapatya Agni means for the Grihastha, for performing their day-to-day daily rituals and Vishesha Karmas. So since Indra was repeatedly stealing the horse, which is a stealing act, which is a sinful act, rishis decided that as a fitting punishment, they decided to offer him to Dakshinagni. Dakshinagni is the Pitragni as a punishment through performing what is called the Abhichara Homa. Homa which is done to destroy the person. So in the process, when they were doing that, Brahma appeared before the king Prithu and pleaded him that you will attain the fame as the king who has completed 99th Ashwamedha Yajna, need not compete with Indra, and dissuaded him from performing the 100th Yajna. Here, what is mentioned here is that the Indra who was trying to get the happiness is something which is temporary happiness, which is experientially born of sensual delightment. There is a verse saying that Yoso in Chandogya Upanishad says, Yoso bhuma tatsukam alpe na sukam asti na alpe sukam asti. Alpe na sukam asti na alpe sukam asti. That means Yoso bhuma tatsukam means that Atma is the ultimate Sukha, because its Swarupa is Satchidananda, and therefore what one should see as ultimate goal is that Atma, and the Sukham or the happiness, experiential happiness one gets from finite things is Alpe, means finite. In the finite there is no real Sukham. There are only pleasures, gratifications of the senses. Whereas in the infinite, Na Alpe, there is the absolute happiness. So this was revealed by Brahmaji to the Prithu also, meaning that what Indra was trying to achieve is only temporary happiness in the form of Swarga and name and fame. Let Indra keep the title as Shatakrutu. You stop the yajna and contemplate on the Lord. That is the message given here. That is how the Brahmaji dissuaded him from performing the 100th yajna. And it is mentioned here that at the end of when the Lord Prithu himself is an avasar amsha of the Vishnu, when stopped the yajna, 100th yajna, and after then the Lord Vishnu himself appeared. It is said that the Lord, your own form, manifested as Vishnu on the completion of the sacrifice. That means that the Lord Vishnu's form, the Prithu saw himself as the form of Vishnu. That's what is mentioned here. Meaning, the self is seen in the vision of the self. That is the message given here. What we should understand here, that only due to ignorance one cannot see oneself as Purusarupa of the Paramatman. Paramatman is indirectly mentioned here. The desire to be equal to Indra by performing 100 Ashwamedha Yaga is only a worldly desire for gaining experiential happiness in Swarga and also for name and fame. These are merely sensual gratification. This will not last long. So that's why when Brahmaji conveyed this and made the Prithu Maharada stop the yajna, he automatically gained the vision of the Lord. The Atma Darshana or the Atma Jnanam one got automatically here. It is mentioned here that Vishnu is addressed as Madhu Ripu. Madhu Ripu means it literally means enemy Madhu. Here in this stage we should see that Madhu Ripu Sudanaha, one who slayed the demon called Madhu. This appears also in Vishnu Sahasranama as the 73rd Nama, Madhusudanaha, the destroyer of Madhu. Madhu Namanam Asuram Sutitavaniti Madhusudanaha means the Lord Vishnu who killed the Asura, the demon called Madhu, and therefore he is called Madhusudana. This Asura is supposed to be born from the ear of Lord Vishnu along with another Asura called Kaidaba. Both of them stole the Vedas and caused a lot of problems and therefore were finally killed by the Lord. The word Madhu also has got another interpretation. Madhuvat Madhuvat Ishtatvat Ahankaraha Madhu. The Ahankara is also given the name Madhu because it is Madhuvat Ishta, very much like honey by an ignorant person. There is a verse that says, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Anything is loved by a person only because it is pleasing to oneself. That is why the ahankara, that is oneself, is the most loved object in the world. We enjoy ourselves because of this ahankara. The enjoyer is the ahankara, and therefore all the desires are only for the enjoyer. Therefore, here the word could be seen also, tam ahankaram sutayati. The Lord who destroys the ahankara by revealing himself or paving the way for destruction of ahankara by providing the grace. And hence he is known as Madhusudana. The ego is nothing but real Swarupa is Parameshwara. And therefore with his grace, with the grace of Lord, the ahankara, the ego bubble bursts and one gets enlightened. This could be also seen as the allegorical meaning of the word Madhusudana. So here the Lord himself, therefore Madhusudana, is very important, this verse used, because here the destruction of ahankara is also talked about here, that in the process there is also destruction of the ahankara. The Indra is made to realize his folly. And Prithvi Maharaj Chakravarti said that when he stopped the yajna, he really understood that the completion of the performing of the yajnas are ultimately give only limited happiness and fame, but what gives happiness is the sakshatkara, the darsana of the Atma, the knowledge of the Atma, which alone gives the absolute happiness. And therefore he got the vision of Vishnu himself as nothing but vision of himself as nothing but Mahavishnu. This is how it is presented here. This is the ultimate goal of every sadhaka, that one has to see the self in the vision of the self itself. The Paramatman is nothing but the Swarupa of the Nirguna Brahman. And I am also the Swarupa of the Nirguna Brahman. There is no difference between me and the Paramatma, that the wave and ocean is only water. Similarly, here also the content of me and the Paramatma is only Nirguna Brahman. That kind of a vision is what is revealed here, where it is said that he saw, the Prithu saw himself as nothing other than Mahavishnu, the Parabrahman, the Nirguna Brahman, in the form of Vishnu. That is the message conveyed here. And it's very important here that for us also, when we do, they said that when we pursue the rituals, etc., the ultimate objective of the ritual is not in boosting ahankara, but in bringing about antakarna shuddhi, and as a means for gaining knowledge of oneself. With this only one should perform all our daily actions. Initially we may do with sakama anushtana, but ultimately it should be a niskama anushtana. The ultimate objective is to see the Lord. Ultimate objective is to gain sayujya with Him. The ultimate objective is to not seek temporary happiness or pleasures, but the absolute happiness. And the Lord who is called as the Sandrananda, who is the Ananda Swarupa himself. My objective is to seek Him. With this one should perform one's daily ritual. From Sakama, one should go to a Nishkama Anushtana. Then only one can seek moksha, gain Atma Sakshakara. This is what is also indirectly revealed in this verse. With this, we'll move into the verse number 9 in the next session. Bhave yada bhaktihi padayostava jayade tata kurusha devesha natastam no yata prabho nama sankirtanam yasya sarva bhava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana akila guru bhagavan namaste. Hari Om. Ya Devi stuyanityam vibhudair veda pargaihi same vasatu jihvagre brahmarupa saraswati. Namami Narayana patapankajam karomi Narayana pujanam sada vadami Narayana namanirmalam smarami Narayana tattvamabhyayam. Apara karanamurti apara karanasintum jnanadam shantarupinam Sri Chandrasekharendra Gurum namami mudanbham. Dhyanamoolam Gurur Murtihi, Puja Moolam Guru Padam, Mantra Moolam Gurur Vakyam, Moksha Moolam Guru Kripa. Invoking the grace of Goddess Saraswati, Guru Ayyappan, Mahapariva and Guru Parampara, we are now entering into verse number 9 of Dasakam 18. Taddattam varamupalabhya bhaktimekam gangante vihitapatah kadapi deva satrastam muninivaham hitani samshan aikshishta sanakamukhan munin purastad taddattam varamupalabhya bhaktimekam gangante vihitapatah kadapi deva satrastam muninivaham hitani samshan aikshishta sanakamukhan munin purastad. Abhyaya. He Deva, taddattam ekam bhaktim varam upalabhya kadapi gangante vihitapataha tvam satrastam muninivaham hitani samshan purastat sanakamukhan munin aikshishtaha. O Lord, after getting Eka Bhakti or a firm devotion alone as a boon from him, thou did establish residence on the banks of the Ganga. Once, when thou were expounding the Dharma to some sages who had assembled there for a yajna, thou did see Sanaka and other sages before thee. This is the literal translation. Here it is mentioned here, Prithu Maharaja Chakravarti got the boon from the Lord. The boon is, it is Varam Upalabhya Ekam Bhaktim, firm devotion. That means gaining the boon of Eka Bhakti or unstinted and single-pointed devotion to Lord. So after gaining this boon from the Lord, the king retired to the forest. It is not mentioned the name here, but Bhagavad Gita mentions Tapovan, which is located in between the Ganga and Yamuna river. Here is mentioned as Gangante, to be understood as Ganga and Yamuna Madhye. The sages were also there on the banks of Ganga, performing Satra Yoga for 100 days. It was at that time that the king also entered the forest. The king was expounding, mentioned here, the Dharma, various aspects of Dharma, broadly comprising Pravritti and Nivritti, for spiritual advancement or growth. In the Satra Yoga, it is Brahma Rishis, Deva Rishis and Raja Rishis were present. So it was a focal point for gaining and sharing the knowledge. The Dharma comprises normally, it is twofold. One is the Karma Kanda of the Veda, and also the Smritis like Manusmriti and Yajnavalkya Smriti, etc., which propound the Pravritti Dharma in terms of performance of various karmas or rituals for Loka Sangraha or benefit of the world, and also for Chitta Shuddhi or inner purification. The other Nivritti Dharma comprises the Upanishad or Jnana Kanta, where one renounces all these karmas and gain what is called the knowledge of the self or absolute reality. Pravritti Dharma ultimately leads the sadhak towards the Nivritti Dharma, and that is why both are equally important. As part of Ashrama Dharma, Pravritti Dharma is followed in Brahmacharya and Grihastha Ashrama, and Nivritti Dharma is ordained for Vanaprastha and Sannyasa Ashrama, which direct the person towards moksha or liberation from samsara or self-ignorance. This was explained by Prithu, who himself is an avatar of Vishnu. It is noteworthy to mention that in Satrayaga, both Jnana Yajna and Drabya Yajna are conducted. Japa, Dhyana, Tirthadana, Parayana, Shravana, Manana all form part of the Jnana Yajna. Dravyas offered in Homa and Puja form part of Dravya Yajna. Dravya Yajna is not merely external, but they also lead a sadhak towards internal or spiritual growth. Both are therefore intrinsically interrelated. So even when we offer Karpura to the Lord, which is as part of Dravya Yajna, what is unfolded is the self-effulgent Brahman or Paramatma Tattva or absolute reality. This needs to be mentioned, noted in mind. The burning of campers symbolically connotes the destruction of ahankara or removal of ignorance. And therefore, even while doing puja, what one ultimately wants to gain is gain the knowledge, gain divinity. That is being established as the relationship between the pravritti and the nivritti dharma. In this way, this king expounded this dharma to various sages who was assembled there. And it's mentioned that at that time he also saw Sanaka and other sages. Sanaka means, other sages means Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana and Sanat Kumara, who we saw earlier, they are the Manasaputra of Brahma. The mention of the Sanakadis are mentioned because this is Sanakadi, the Sanat Kumara is the one who gave the Upadesha to Prithu ultimately about the Atma Jnanam, which is being mentioned in the subsequent verse. With this we move on to verse number 10. Vijnanam Sanaka Mukhoditam Dadhanaha Swatmanam Swayamagamo Vananta Sevi Tattadrik Prithu Vapurisha Sattvaram Me Rogaugham Prashamaya Vata Gehavasin Sanaka Mukhoditam Vijnanam Dadhanaha Vananta Sevi Swayam Swatmanam Agamaha He Vata Gehavasin He Isha Tattadrik Prithuvapuhu Me Rogaukam Sattvaram Prashamaya. Sanaka Mukhoditam, imparted by Sanaka and the other sages. Vijnanam, the knowledge. Dadhanaha, receiving. Vananta Sevi, living in the forest. Swayam Swatmanam Agamaha, thou did attain thy own nature. He Vata Gehavasin, O Lord of Guruvayur, the one who resides in Guruvayur. He Isha, O Lord. Tattadrik Prithuvapuhu, thou who has thus assumed the form of Prithu. Me Rogaugam, all my ailments. Sattvaram Prashamaya, eradicate quickly. Receiving the knowledge imparted by Sanaka and the other sages, and living in the forest, thou did realize thy own nature, O Lord of Guruvayur, O Lord, who did assume the form of Prithu. Eradicate me from all my ailments. So this is a concluding Dasaka verse of this. Here is mentioned that the Lord is here addressed as Vada Gehavasin, means one who is resident in or established in Guruvayur, and also the Isa or the Lord of the world. It is mentioned here that the Prithu gained this Atma Jnanam of self-knowledge from the Sanakas. In Bhagavata it is mentioned that this knowledge was given by Sanat Kumara. And the Atma Jnanam is nothing but gaining the Swaswarupa. That is what is mentioned there. He gained this Swarupa himself. Or the knowledge that I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. That Brahman which is Eka, which is one without the second, which is the Saram, which is the essence or the content, which is Nityam, which is exists in all time, eternal, and also Satyam, the absolute reality, the truth of everything. In the creation, everything else is Mithya, Brahman alone is Satyam. So this knowledge is gained, Aham Brahmasmi. And this knowledge was given by Sanat Kumara. After listening to this Upadesha given by the Sanat Kumara, through Manana, or reflecting or assimilating of knowledge, and Nitidhyasanam, meditating on the Nirguna Brahman, it is mentioned that Prithu gained Samadhi or became one with the infinite. Thus he gained moksha or mukti or liberation through Guru Upadesha. That's how this verse talked about. It is noteworthy to mention that after gaining the knowledge, he renounced the kingdom and took up to sannyasa and retired to the forest and gained, and where he shared the knowledge and himself also gained Atma Sakshatkara. The glory of Prithviraj Maharaj is that as he king, he did all that could be done by extracting the sampatti from earth and making the kingdom prosperous. At the same time, while being established also in Pravritti Marga, he also established the Nivritti Dharma and was blessed by the sages. The sages were all able to perform their yagas and lead a spiritual life, and their dharma was followed totally. Like King Janaka, he ruled the kingdom without deviating from the Rajadharma, and at the same time rooted in Nivritti Dharma, culminating in Atma Jnanam. Bhattatirmal also makes a fervent prayer to Guruvayurappan, mentioning that, "O Lord of Guruvayur, who you yourself assume the form of Prithu, who cannot be compared with any other form, also eradicate me from all my cluster of mental and bodily ailments." Here it is worth mention that Prithu's glory is that he was himself an Amsha of Bhagavan, no doubt, but he also ruled as a king and he also was like a sannyasi. He ultimately realized his own true nature. That is the glory of this. With this, the Dasaka 18 comes to an end. We'll move on to the Dasaka number 19 in the next session. Bhave bhave yata bhaktihi padayostava jayate tata kurushva devesha natastvam no yata prabhu nama sankirtanam yasya sarva bhava pranasanam pranamo dukkha samanaha tam namami harim param. Narayana Akila Guru Bhagavan Namaste.
Radhe Krishna.
Hari Om.
Gopika Jivana Smaranam Govinda Govinda. Chanting the 18th Dasakam of Narayaneeyam. Jatasya Dhruvakula eva tunga kirtehe angasya vyajanisutah savena nama yaddosha vyatitamate sarajavaryaha त्वत्पादे निहितमना वनं गतो भूत् पापोऽपि क्षितितलपालनाय वेनः पौराध्यै उपनिहितः कठोरवीर्यः सर्वेभ्यो निजबलमेव सम्प्रशंसन् भूचक्रे तव यजनान्ययं न्यरौत्सीत् सम्प्राप्ते हितकथनाय तापसौगे मत्तोऽन्यो भुवनपतिर्न कश्चनेति त्वन्निन्दावचनपरो मुनीश्वरैस्थैः शापाग्नौ शलभदशाम् अनायिवेनः तन्नाशात् खलजनभीरुखैर्मुनीन्द्रैः तन्मात्रा चिरपरिरक्षिते तदङ्गे त्यक्ताङ्गे परिमतिता तात अथौ रुदण्डात् दोर्दण्डे परिमतिते त्वमाविरासीः विख्यातः पृथुरिति तापसोपदिष्टैः सूताद्यै परिणुत भाविभूरिवीर्यः वेनार्थ्या कबलितं सम्पदं दरिद्रीम् आक्रान्तां निजजनुषां समामकाशीः भूयस्थां निजकुलमुख्यवत्सयुक्तैः देवाध्यै समुचितचारुभाजनेषु अन्नाधीनभिलषितानि यानि तानि स्वच्छन्दं सुरभितनूम् अधूदुहस्त्वं स्वच्छन्दं सुरभितनूम् अधूदुहस्त्वम् आत्मानं यजति मखैस्त्वयि त्रिधामन् आरब्धे शततमवाजिमेधयागे स्पर्धालुः शतमख एत्यनीचवेषः हृत्वाश्वं तव तनयात् पराजितोऽभूत् देवेन्द्रं मुहुरिति वाजिनं हरन्तं वह्नौ तं मुनिवरमण्डले जुहूषौ रुन्धाने कमलभवे क्रथौ समाप्तौ साक्षात् त्वं मधुरिपु मैक्षथाः स्वयं स्वम् तद्दत्तं वरमुपलभ्य भक्ति एकां तद्धत्तं वरमुपलभ्य भक्तिमेकां गङ्गा ते विहितपथः कदापि देव सत्रस्त्वं मुनिनिवहं हितानि शंसन् ऐक्षिष्टाः सनकमुखान् मुनीन् पुरस्तात् विज्ञानं सनकमुखोदितं दधानः स्वात्मानं स्वयमगमो वनान्तसेवी तत्तादृक्पृथुवपुरीश सत्वरं मे रोगौघं प्रशमय वातगेहवासिन् गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्द गोविन्द हरे कृष्ण।